Hey everybody, welcome to the video. So we're breaking down the loaded, and I mean loaded, 12-game MLB DFS slate for today on Draftkings. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, you might as well hit that subscribe button. And we're all season long trying to help you guys become better MLB DFS players that cover other sports as well. I know the MLB season is winding down, but I do cover NFL, which goes all fall long and a decent portion of the winter. Then I cover NASCAR, which I know they're in the playoffs, but they go all the way until November. So I'm going to be here for quite some time covering these sports. So if you're going to keep coming back to the channel each and every single day or each and every single week, you might as well hit the subscribe button and turn the notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I post new videos. And if you don't follow me on social media, my handles are in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And if you want to see more content over on Patreon, always much appreciated. We got 300 plus members. You can hop into the Discord chat and you can get access to all the extra content that I put out each and every single day or each and every single week, depending on the sport. So if you're interested, links down below if you're interested. I think I just said that twice, but if not, that's fine. Let's just dive into today's slate. And it's a very fun slate, so I'm looking forward to it. But anyway, up top, I got Tyler Glass now at 9,700. I don't think he's an absolute must on the slate, especially with all the good expensive options we have on the offense today. But there's plenty of good value options as well. So if you want to make Tyler Glass now your SP1, I have no issue with that at all. Now the Orioles, they're not a pushover matchup these days, and this is not a very pitcher-friendly park at all in Camden Yards. Very friendly to the hitters, and I do have quite a bit of interest in a Tampa Bay Rays stack versus Alex Cobb today. But I do like Tyler Glass now. He's a very good pitcher. He has a massive 37% strikeout rate, just pulling up his numbers this season. 2.87 xFIP, which is nearly 2 runs lower than his ERA, so he is getting a little bit unlucky, but 37% K rate, 10% walk rate, which is a little bit ugly, but still overall some very solid numbers. And if we're looking at his game, the past few games in his game log, 21 points versus Boston, 19 versus Miami, 33 versus the Yankees, and then 38 versus the Baltimore Orioles. So he's done well in this matchup before. Now that was in Tampa, so it's a much better pitching environment for him, but I still think Tyler Glass now is going to be fine here. He should be able to rack up some strikeouts. He's got 7.5 strikeouts over in Vegas. Very heavy favorite, 67% chance for the win, and a 3.46 implied team total. So definitely have plenty of interest in Tyler Glass now here, and he's the SP1 on this slate for me, but I don't think he's an absolute must play if you want to fit in some more expensive bats. Then Chris Paddack here, 8,800. I wouldn't say I'm like fully confident in Chris Paddack because he can be a very pedestrian up and down pitcher. But I think he'll be fine in this matchup versus Seattle. Vegas does as well, only 3.6 runs for the Mariners here. He's a pretty decently sized favorite at 64% chance for the win and 5 strikeouts. Now, if we're looking at his numbers this season, he's getting a little bit unlucky. I think that 43% hard contact rate is going to come down, and I don't think he's a 2 home run per 9 innings pitcher. That should come down as well. He's really not giving up that many fly balls either, only 33% fly ball rate and a 44% ground ball rate as well. And a 4.74 ERA, which comes with an xFIP of over a run lower at 3.57. Now the Mariners are a worse team versus lefties if we're looking at their splits. Overall, just look at the green bars for lefties. They are not very good versus them with 63 WRC plus, 259 WOBA, and overall some very poor numbers. Now to the righties, those numbers do improve. I mean, 23% K rate, that is lower than their 25% K rate, 157 ISO, 247 batting average, and a 100 WRC plus, which is nearly 40 points higher than the 63 WRC plus versus lefties. So I wouldn't say this is a cakewalk matchup for Chris Paddack. And like I said, he's definitely capable of putting up some mediocre games. If we're looking at his game log the past few starts, 9 points, 9 points, 29 points in Coors Field, which is just kind of random, but then 7.9 points versus Seattle. He had 5 innings, allowed 8 hits, 6 runs, 6 of them earned, 7 strikeouts on 93 pitches, and then 17 points versus the Rangers. I think we're probably looking at anywhere from 10 to 20 points, but that is a pretty wide range, but I think he'll be okay here. Vegas doesn't think he's going to get shelled or anything, so I think Paddack's fine at 8,800. But I do prefer Zach Plesac at 8,500. Do like him quite a bit. He's probably my favorite pitching option on this slate. Anytime at least a decent righty is facing Detroit, they're always in a good spot because of their insane strikeout rate versus right-handed pitching. If you're looking at their numbers this season, they're striking out a league high 28.6% of the time versus right-handed pitching, 89 WRC plus, 304 win, overall some pretty poor numbers. And Plesac, he's been very consistent this season. Now, he had his worst start of the year last time out versus Minnesota, where he scored 11 points. But besides that, he's been very, very good. I mean, 11 points, like I said, but then 21, 25, 27, 18, and 38. He has yet to play the Detroit Tigers, but he should do very well in this matchup. Only 3.63 runs implied team total for the Tigers. Pretty heavy favorite here and 5.5 strikeouts over in Vegas. Now, if you're looking at his numbers this season, he's getting a little bit lucky with this 2.2 ERA, but a 3.67 xFIP is nothing to be scared off of. That's actually a very, very solid score. 26% carry. He's not walking anybody. Only a 2% walk rate, 30% hard contact rate, and I love the matchup here. So definitely like Zach Plesac, and he's probably gonna be my highest owned pitcher on this slate if I was max entering. He's definitely probably my cash game staple pitcher as well at that price tag. Anyway, moving on to the bats, it's an absolutely loaded slate for the bats. There's so many good options here. The Dodgers are in a good spot. The Yankees are in a good spot. The Colorado Rockies are in a good spot. The Indians are. The Tampa Bay Rays. I don't think I see if I have anybody else listed. The Braves are in a good spot. Trying to scroll down the list here, but yeah, there's many, many good spots. Even the San Diego Padres are facing a lefty, and they crush left-handed pitching. I don't have many Padres listed because I can't list the entire slate, but even they're in a good spot. So keep that in mind when we're going through this. But a lot of good ways to go. By the way, up top we have Will Smith at 4,800. He crushes right-handed pitching. Very expensive, and I don't love paying this much for catchers, but I do love the Dodgers on the slate. There's no implied team total out yet for this game, but I have to imagine the Dodgers are going to have the highest team total on this slate. Ryan Castellani, not a pitcher I'm going to be too scared of here. And the Dodgers are elite versus right-handed pitching, so I think you can just feel free to load all of these guys up. If you're looking at Will Smith's numbers this season, 377 ISO over a 430 WOBA, 175 WRC plus over a 660 slugging, getting a lot of fly balls and doesn't really strike out much at all versus right-handed pitching. So definitely like Will Smith, he is the top catching option on this slate, but that comes with a very hefty price tag as well. Gary Sanchez, 4,200. Pretty much like all the Yankees once again, they're going up against the Red Sox's ace. Did I say Red Sox's? The Red Sox ace, Martin Perez, which Boston's pitching staff has been horrendous this season. You can pretty much load up all bats versus them for the most part this year. And as you can see, the Yankees have a team total above 6. It's a hitter-friendly park in Boston. And just feel free to load up all the Yankees. Now, they're also coming at a bit of a discount here to the Dodgers as well. If we're looking at Sanchez's splits versus lefties this season, he's got a 211 ISO, striking out an insane 34% of the time. But he's walking a lot, 26% walk rate, getting a lot of fly balls. Now, the batting average is gross at 105, but there's decent power here. Martin Perez is not a pitcher to be scared of, and neither is the Boston bullpen. Then Tony Walters, he's near the bare minimum at 2,100. He's going to be facing a righty Mitchell White in Coors Field. It's going to be a bullpen game pretty much for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And the Rockies are in a pretty good spot. They should have a team total above 6 on this slate. If it's not 6, they'll be close to it, but they're also a little bit cheaper than the Dodgers as well. But the bare minimum, he's fine. Yeah, he kind of sucks. If you're just looking at his numbers versus righties, a 264 slugging, a 222 batting average, a 1% walk rate, yeah, 0.42 ISO, but it's just cheap Coors Field exposure. Then dropping down to first base, I mean, there's just so many good bats on the slate. You got Bellinger, Luke Voigt, and then every single position's just got so many good options. So it's going to be really hard to, if you're a guy that plays one lineup a night, I mean, good luck picking which guys you want to use because there's so many good spots. But Cody Bellinger for the 800 facing a righty in Coors Field, I think that kind of speaks for itself. The numbers haven't been as good this season as they were last year, but still, Cody Bellinger's one of the elite bats in the league. And he's still got good numbers this season versus righties. Not in the batting average department, but in the power. 260 ISO, 416 on base percentage. And the batting average is at 213. But I think he'll be fine here. It's Coors Field, and he's facing a pretty average to below average pitcher in Ryan Castellani. Luke Voigt, 5,300. He is absolutely murdering baseballs this season. I believe he's got he's either at 20 or 21 home runs this season, which leads everybody. And he has been absolutely fantastic. He's going to be in the cleanup spot. He's facing a lefty, and he's crushed left-handed pitching this season with a near 500 ISO, 417 WOBA, 719 slugging, and just overall very, very good numbers. So Luke Voigt, definitely like him on Yankee stacks or just even as a one-off. Very good play in my opinion. And then getting some more value options here, we have Carlos Santana and Nate Lowe. Carlos Santana, looking at his numbers, are not going to be always too impressive. And look, Michael Fulmer is the opener. Daniel Norris is going to be the long relief guy, but Fulmer should pitch a decent amount of innings. So if you're wondering why I have Daniel Norris as the pitcher listed here, just because Fangraphs is pulling in the long relief. But just know they'll get quite a few innings from Michael Fulmer unless he gets blown up, which I wouldn't mind him getting blown up because I do have interest in the Indian stack today. But don't mind Carlos Santana here. Looking at his numbers versus righties, it's not too impressive, but over a 20% walk rate, not really striking out too much. Only a .090 ISO though, which is gross. 261 slugging and a 171 batting average, but I like the price point. I think he's fine, especially with the Indian stack that has a team total well above 5 today. And there's some decent cheap options on that stack as well. Then Nate Lowe at 2,900. He is dirt cheap batting cleanup here versus Alex Cobb. Alex Cobb is not the greatest pitcher in the world. This is a very hitter-friendly ballpark. Huge upgrade for the Rays going into Camden Yards here. They have a team total above 5 right now. I thought it would be a little bit higher. I could see that creeping up as the day goes on. But if you're looking at low splits, and it's a limited sample size, but so far versus righties this season, a 538 ISO, 438 WOBA, 186 WRC+, and just overall very good numbers. So I don't mind him at only 2,900. Then dropping out second base, DJ LeMahieu at 5,600. Like all the Yankees here, so I'm not going to go too in depth. But if looking at his numbers, he's only got a 4% carry to lefties this season, and he's an elite contact hitter. 318 batting average, not a ton of power, but I feel like he's been hitting homers every single night recently, and he's definitely got pop. I mean, only a 136 ISO to lefties this season, but overall, I like all the Yankees. He's really expensive, but I mean, he's one of the better stacks on the entire on the entire slate. And then Brandon Lau here at 5,500, just a lefty here versus Alex Cobb. If you're looking at Cobb's splits this season, he's given up a 315 WOBA to lefties. In the past couple of years, he's given up well over a 300 ISO to lefties. Now, it was a smaller sample size last season, so those numbers are a bit skewed, but we can certainly use lefties here versus Alex Cobb. And the Rays got plenty of lefties in this lineup. If you're looking at Brandon Lau's splits this season versus righties, he's got a, I was looking at DJ LeMahieu's numbers really quick. 252 ISO, a 349 WOBA, 124 WRC+, and near 500 slugging. Batting average is a little low, and he's actually been better versus lefties this season with over a 400 ISO, 455 WOBA. So overall, much better numbers, but still, Brandon Lau versus righty in Camden Yards, I think he'll be a fine option. If you want a more salary relief option, we have Cesar Hernandez here at 4,200, just leading off for the Indians, which I have plenty of, or not leading off, batting second for the Indians. I forgot they switched up their order, how they do their order recently. But I do like the Indian stack here, and they're a pretty decent spot versus Daniel Norris and Michael Fulmer tonight. Then Joey Wendell, 3,900, just a cheaper option at second base or even third base because he's also eligible there as well. I'm hitting in the middle of the order of this Rays lineup, and I have plenty of interest in all the Rays here in Camden Yards tonight versus Alex Cobb in the Orioles bullpen. Then dropping out of third base, there's a lot of good expensive options here in Nolan Arenado, Max Muncy, and Jose Ramirez. Arenado facing a righty. Now, if you're looking at his numbers this season, they're not as good as they were last year, especially versus lefties. Versus lefties last season, well over a 300 ISO and just overall very, very good numbers. I mean, the batting average is fine at 296, and he's not really striking out at all, but the power really hasn't been there as much. Now, versus righties, the power's up a little bit, 225 ISO, 259 batting average, only striking out 9% of the time, but just struggling a bit this season, but he's still in Coors Field. Mitchell White's not really a pitcher I'm going to be too scared of here, so I think he's totally fine. The Rockies should have one of the highest team totals on the entire slate in Coors Field tonight. Max Muncy facing a righty in Coors Field. Don't really have to go too in-depth there, but just overall very good numbers, and he's got plenty of power as well, and projected batting cleanup as of right now. And then Jose Ramirez, 5,300. He double-donged last night. Now, he's actually been better versus lefties compared to righties, so versus Michael Fulmer, I mean, he's still going to be fine. He still smashes righties, but he will see Daniel Norris at some point, more than likely, and he's been crushing lefties. If you're looking at his splits this year versus them, 333 batting average, over a 450 ISO, 47 WOBA, 212 WRC+, and just overall very, very good numbers from J-Ram, and I think the Indians are one of the better stacks on the entire slate. Then if you want a salary relief option here, we have Edwin Rios here at 3,400 in Coors Field. In limited sample size this season, really hasn't gotten too much playing time, but looking at his numbers, a 265 ISO to righties and near 400 on base percentage, 471 slugging, pretty low batting average, but I think he's fine. It's just a cheap option in Coors. Then at shortstop, Trevor Story, 5,600. He's just been on fire this year. He's been better versus lefties, but that's not to say he's been bad versus righties either. Does strike out quite a bit at 25% clip, but 252 ISO, 364 WOBA, 534 slugging, and a 282 batting average, so I think Trevor Story's fine. He's just been crushing this season, especially in Coors Field. And Frankie Lindor at 5,500. A bit expensive here, so I wouldn't say he's my favorite option. I'd rather play Corey Seager by far than Francisco Lindor, and I'd probably rather play Trevor Story as well. But he's fine if you're stacking up the Indians. He is better versus right-handed pitching. But Corey Seager, 5,300, is going to be one of the top plays for me on this entire slate. He's just been so good versus right-handed pitching this season with a 350 ISO, 440 WOBA, 180 WRC+, 668 slugging, a 340 batting average. Not really striking out much either, so I love Corey Seager. I think you can make a case for him being the top play on the entire slate, if we're being honest. So definitely like Corey Seager. He's just been super good versus righties, and we're in the best hitting conditions in the entire slate in Coors Field. So definitely like Corey Seager. And then Gleyber Torres, 3,100. He's pretty cheap here. He's got some decent power numbers versus lefties. He's a guy that will strike out a lot, but versus lefties, that's only at 18% this season. 174 ISO, 217 batting average is very, very low, but still, I like all the Yankees here versus Martin Perez and whoever else they throw out in the bullpen as well. Then going to the outfield, we have Mookie Betts, 6,000. He's been crushing right-handed pitching this season. Looking at his numbers, they are concerningly bad versus lefties. Like, they're pretty trashed. 0.26 ISO, 48 WRC plus, a 205 slugging, and a 180 batting average. But to the righties, that's a whole different story. A 386 ISO, a 463 WOBA, 194 WRC plus, 339 batting average, and just overall very, very good numbers. So Mookie Betts, I think he's a fantastic option here versus a righty in Coors Field. Charlie Blackmon's facing a righty in Coors, so that kind of speaks for itself. Anytime that's the case, he's going to be one of the top plays on the entire slate. Now, he's actually been better versus lefties this season. Like, he's got some really good numbers versus them. A 464 batting average and just overall very, very good numbers, but still facing a righty in Coors, he'll be plenty interesting to me. Aaron Judge, 5,000, facing a lefty here. And Martin Perez, looking at his numbers this season versus lefties. Smaller sample size because he was hurt for a good amount of the season, but a near 1,000 slugging, a 375 batting average, 563 slugging, and a 546 WOBA. So I think he is definitely an interesting option here. And I love the Yankee stack tonight. Then Marcell Ozuna, 4,900. Another guy who's just crushing lefties this season. I don't have many Braves listed, but I think the entire Braves lineup is stackable, including Acuna, Adam Duvall, Austin Riley, Travis d'Arnaud, even Freddie Freeman. But there's just so many options in this slate, I want to list every single bat. But they do draw a pretty good spot here versus Steven Matz. He's a guy that does struggle with speed, definitely cannot hold runners, and he gives up some power to right-handed bats as well, and even lefties too. But Ozuna, his numbers versus lefties have been insanely good this year with a 645 ISO, 595 WOBA, near 400 batting average, and over 1,000 slugging. So yeah, I think he's totally a fine option. Giancarlo Stanton at 4,300. He's just too cheap versus lefties, one of the best lefty mashers in the entire league. 300 WRC plus versus them this season, and again, it's a smaller sample size because he's been hurt. But a 429 batting average at 571 ISO, and just overall crushes lefties, and I love that price tag. Will Myers, 3,800. Like, I like the Padres, but their team total is only at 4.9. I don't think Kikuchi's the worst pitcher in the world, but you can certainly use Machado, you can certainly use Tatis, and you can use some other guys as well. Don't think I don't like them, but I just don't want to list the entire slate. But Will Myers, 3,800. He's great versus lefties. Looking at his numbers this season, a 360 ISO, 360 batting average, and just overall very, very good numbers. So I definitely don't mind Will Myers. Aaron Hicks, he's just a cheaper part of that Yankee stack. Raimel Tapia at 3,400. He's been pretty solid this season, leading off for the Colorado Rockies, and he's just still underpriced at 3,400. Not sure why they're keeping him this cheap. Now, he's actually been better versus lefties this season. So he's been another reverse splits guy with a 407 batting average to lefties, 426 WOBA, and just overall very good numbers. Versus righties, those numbers are a little bit poor and a high ground ball rate, but 3,400 leading off in Coors Field, you're going to be interesting always. David Dahl, 2,600, just a cheap part of the Rocky stack. He's always had some decent power versus right-handed pitching. Then Tyler Naquin, 2,500. He's a dirt cheap part of the Cleveland Indians stack tonight. He's actually been very solid versus righties this season with a 282 batting average, 256 ISO, a 345 WOBA, and just overall some pretty solid numbers. So I think he is fine as well. But that's going to be it for the video, guys. I hope it was helpful. If it was, make sure you leave a like. And if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Really helps me out. I really do appreciate it. That's going to be it for the video. I'm going to record my final thoughts piece for NFL Week 2 in a little bit here. And I think that's pretty much it. If you want to check out the NASCAR content, we are going to Bristol this weekend on Saturday night, so it won't interfere with your NFL. And if you do good, maybe you'll have a bigger bankroll for the NFL slate. But I'm going to leave you guys with that. Enjoy your Friday, and hopefully you guys have a great night tonight.